Ho! What's going on, world? You know who it is. It's Zeus Cruz of Olympian Multimedia giving you another segment of Get Things Done. In this particular case, we are revisiting a old video and making it new, basically. The old into the new, in which we're going to be discussing miniature photography and kind of just giving you the basic layout of putting together your project. We're also going to be discussing a little bit more in depth about how the settings and how to set up the device that you're using to take your video and take your photos, as far as with the miniatures, and just kind of just brainstorming and just shooting out some different ideas to kind of get your creative juices flowing. So as you see the layout here, the spread is pretty big here. As you notice, there's a lot of different things here that you can utilize. Basically, the point of this video is to kind of encourage you that you don't necessarily always have to go out and just buy a lot of different type of models in order for you to build these miniatures, or even spend to get the resources needed if you were going to go ahead and build your own structures and different models from scratch. You can actually just utilize some different materials and kind of just go ahead and make your project come to life, your miniature project come to life. Normally, to start off with, depending on the type of miniature photography project that you're doing, obviously there's different types of settings that you can put it, your miniatures to, your models can be structured in different types of ways. You're going to obviously have various different types of backdrops. In this particular one, we're just kind of going to just outline just a quick fantasy sort of forest, woodland type of setting. And usually you just want to get yourself some like a simple base. Nothing all elaborate. Obviously scaling and just the size of how what your scene is going to be is very important. Obviously it will be dependent on the platform that you're using. But we're just using something simple here. Usually you want to lay some type of texture down there. In this particular case, they have like different mats that you can use. This one is like a gravel, sandy type of matting. And you can literally just put that in there. So that could create like the basis for obviously the startup of your scene. Obviously, there's other things as well that you can use. Different types of textures that simulate different types of landscaping. This one obviously simulates some gravel. And obviously, as you see here, you can position it however you see fit. This particular case, it kind of works because then it divides your base into two sections in which you can do two different things. Shrubbery. Some people tend to depend on like cardstock or something that's similar to that in order to kind of simulate different types of elements in nature, like water and land, grass. But at your local craft stores, you actually have things that can actually simulate this and just give it that realism that you're looking for. As you can see, you got some shrubbery. You notice we have some leaves as well. This can simulate some other type of shrubbery or whatnot. And obviously, you can go ahead and position these the way you see fit. You can add more to your landscaping by providing like different trees. Position them the way you see fit on there to start outlining it. Adding more structures into it, stuff that is already made. And I'm just kind of just giving a brief overview. Obviously, you would set this up a lot more, but you could get mostly the idea. In this particular case, it just allows some type of rustic look to it. You can start adding other elements as well. As you can see here, this could simulate a lake. You notice I have different sizes when it comes to the miniatures. And this will kind of work very well for you because when you're doing the scene, depending on your angles, and we're going to be discussing it a little bit more, especially when it comes to your frame rate and the type of lenses that you use, you can actually kind of offset your photos and your videos and kind of give that 50-50 view where you see certain elements within the scene or a little bit bigger than others, especially if you're using smaller characters. You can allow them to be a little bit more bigger and your background becomes a little bit smaller, or vice versa. Obviously, you don't want to put too many, but like as you can see here with the butterfly, it's something easily that you can attach to up here onto your structure just to give it a little bit more texture. There's even larger ones that you can use, and you can use this as your center point and kind of build your scene around it. This is actually one particular scene that we're going to be working on. It will be coming out in a future video. Again, it has that woodland, fairy tale, rustic type scene that we're trying to create. But using bigger structures versus something smaller, it allows you to scale your scene a lot more better. Again, giving that illusion. That's all what miniature photography and video making is about. Just giving an illusion that certain things are bigger than what they are, or even possibly smaller than what they are. So there's all kinds of different things that you can utilize with these. I have mentioned to it before, the fact that you can use different types of textures in the form of rocks that can simulate different things, gravel, grass, the water. You could create somewhat of like a shoreline. Spacing is important because you don't want to be too congested in certain areas. So spacing is important, but definitely you can add different things to just give it a little bit more of a flair. And again, you could just picture these things in different ways. Obviously, editing is important once you go to edit. And also, too, don't be afraid to use other elements as well. Sometimes it's cool to use actually a drawing. Obviously, you could bring it more to life. And then once you go to editing, but as you can see here, this will be like a cool thing where it has like a dragon eye in the background. You use this as your main backdrop. When you go to editing, you obviously would scale it a little bit more to kind of cover the whole background. Bring the colors more to life. And that just gives a different element, different flair to your project, where you have like a dragon eye kind of overlooking things. You can also use bigger structures like here, and then you can work around this structure so that this will be your central point, and then everything around it you can make downsize it so that it gives more of this illustrious feel, in this particular case, to this castle, and make it very much larger than life. And again, you can make these as well. You know, don't be afraid to use your imagination. Use a combination of things that's already made versus things that you can make, just to give your project that personal touch, obviously. And also, too, I definitely recommend as well to use clay. The best type of clay to use are oven-based clay. It's more easier to work with. It's very inexpensive. This particular plant is Arteza. I definitely recommend it. But it's definitely more easier to work and a lot more firmer as well. So it can stay in place depending on how you're trying to position. And then also too, the use of lights always makes, and again, I'm just kind of spitballing here. But again, obviously, a lot of this is intuitive of how you edit, because clearly you don't want all these lines in the way. But it just adds a little bit more of a flair by doing lighting. Lighting is very important when it comes to miniature projects, doing your photos and your videos. You can't have enough light, because the light definitely offsets and creates more to the illusion that you're trying to create. So you never go wrong with lighting. And again, it just adds a little bit more flair. You want to make your project unique, but in subtle ways and not overdo it. So remember, it's about scaling, spacing everything out onto the platform in which you're creating your scene. Don't be afraid to, as far as scaling is concerned, using things that are little versus things that are a little bit bigger. And then again, you can add just these subtle nuances here as far as like different shrubberies to create different type of natural elements, if that's what's going to be included in your scene. As you see here, you can actually even replace these things. It's cool to just put like a little campfire. Another idea too is to create maybe some type of moat with a water that's coming through, and then it could be separated by a bridge. There's so many different ways that you can kind of utilize here, a combination of things that's pre-made versus things that you can't make. So obviously you're going to be using the device to obviously take your photos and videos. These are things that you need to remember. Obviously, if you're going to use a camera, it usually has in-depth settings in which you can configure different things. This is a component or attachment that you can put on here. It's an LED light. Obviously, it has a spectrum on here in which you can change the coloring if you wanted to add some type of tint or temperature to your photo or video. One thing you need to remember when you're doing your settings for your device is your aperture should be set at 5.6, and it's essential for what we're talking about with the lighting, but to keep whatever your subject is within your shot to stay in focus. But the backdrop, there be like this soft blur. So you can still kind of tell what's in the background, but you're bringing all the attention to whatever is the main subject of your shot. Obviously, the angling in which you will hold it, you kind of want to be centered, close, maybe into an angle. Obviously, the closer you're toward your subjects in your shot, obviously the bigger they're going to be. But you may not have to be so stringent on the way your movements are as you come in and you take the shots. So remember, lighting is key. So you definitely want to check your shutter speed and adjust the sensitivity of the light that's coming in by changing your ISO settings. So you definitely want to go low. You don't want to have too much light permeating right at that moment when you're taking the shot, but you want to have enough light that's ambient around your shot. So your ideal lenses, as you see here, your ideal lens would be a wide angle micro lens. So you can encompass a lot more of the shot. If you don't have a wide angle, then a micro lens is just as good. I definitely recommend this brand. It's called Aperture because it allows you to have both. You can actually just unscrew it as you see, and turning into a micro lens, a super micro lens, into a wide angle micro lens. But these are the preferred type. It allows you to get super close for tightly framed sharp angles. So it's definitely recommended. Remember too about changing your frame rate. The best frame rate in order to take a shot is at 120 frames per second. Understand though, when you're setting your shutter speed, that it should be double your frame rate. So if you're running at 120 frames per second, then your shutter speed, should be 1/250 of a second. So just keep that in mind. Remember, shutter speed should be double your frame rate. And then lastly, if you have a device that doesn't allow you to do too much configurations and you're looking for something that kind of would do it on its own, well, without too much on your part, and you need something a little bit smaller. They do offer micro video devices because you may not be working with enough space and you really want to get your shot perfect. They do offer these as well. And they're pretty much pre-configured. They already have presets made. You just click the ones that you prefer, and then you could just go ahead and just take your shot. And you actually can be more of in a stationary position without doing too much movement, and it will capture what you're looking for or get the desired results that you want. So again, these are just all ideas to allow you to get your project started. Just remember the keys as far as doing your project. Remember spacing and scaling. You don't want to be too much congested, especially in one part of your scene. You want to allow people to kind of embrace your whole scene and what exactly that you're trying to accomplish with it. Remember that there are so many different things that you can utilize between using clay, between using at your local craft stores. There are different things that you can use that can simulate different things, whether you're doing like a nature scene, you're in the city, you're down by the shore, if you're doing something more whimsical or something to this setting with fantasy. Um, there's so many different things that you can utilize to make your shot come to life. And also remember, lighting is very important. Remember that. Lighting is very, very important. So just remember, again, check your shutter speeds, check your ISO settings, use the right type of lens, wide angle, micro lens. And remember that your frame rate or your shutter speed, excuse me, should be double your frame rate, however you got it set. Last but not least, as you can see here, it's best to kind of keep your stuff organized as well. So I definitely recommend different types of cases. Things could get very tedious when it comes to miniatures. It's easy to lose things. Things can break. So I definitely recommend you get yourself some nice containers to allow you to go ahead and organize. And also too, as a quick tip, and this has been a game changer, and again, it's something simple. Get yourself some clear stretch cord. And the reason for that is to continue the illusion where you can actually make it so that certain things look like they're levitating in air. And there's not too much editing on your end because it's clear. So you won't even tell that you actually even have the lines in there as well as you have it posted up within your scene. It's clear. And this definitely came in handy on more than one occasion to giving that illusion. So this is just a quick tip as well. And that's about it, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope this gave you some type of clarity. I hope this encouraged you to go ahead and pursue your miniature project. And that's about it. So I guess the only thing left to say is get things done. Check you later.